All right, so we're going to let Eric drive, so if he messes anything up.
So first thing for me, I'm a 10-year veteran of insights and marketing research at P&G, so it's interesting being on kind of the brand building side. So I said I'd keep it really fun, because some of these presentations get kind of dry. First of all, I want to tell you a stat. In Hamilton County, which is where the big county in the city of Cincinnati, 1 in 6 people have a felony. 1 in 6. Probably a number I didn't believe when I first heard it. And the biggest thing about re-entry, the biggest challenge for someone with a felony is getting employment after having a felony. It's a very hard thing to do. Everybody checks that box as they have a job application. Well, we at Nehemiah Manufacturing are on an absolute mission to provide second chances for people who need it. So we are based in the urban core of Cincinnati, and we've created over 110 jobs in the inner city for people that need a second chance. And that's somebody that, thank you. So this could be incarceration, this could be a history of drug and alcohol addiction, but that is why we are here, and that's why, but what we do, and my history is in CPG brand building, what we do is we build brands to create jobs. We've continued to have a very much a linear growth in jobs. You can see our employees here every Friday in the summer. This is actually our manufacturing facility. We get together for a grill out together. Our CEO has the straw hat on. You'd never know. Totally different culture than right down the road. And a quote that we had recently that was published in Google's Economic Impact Report was that online advertising is the great equalizer. We were a small company. We have to spend money efficiently. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And to brag on us a little bit more, as we were just ranked the number 5 place to work in the city of Cincinnati. So who are we? What brands do we have? So you can see I was hawking Boogie Wipes around. I have 2 young daughters, love Boogie Wipes. We have a global patent on putting saline in a wipe, which we'll talk more about later. We also have a brand called Can Do, which was formerly Pampers Can Do. So we have all the toddler needs covered. We're going to launch a new adult product called Saline Soothers. So you're some of the first to hear about that. I'll talk about that later. And then on the right-hand side, we actually license. So we manufacture and market products under license from Procter & Gamble. So our biggest one is Downy Wrinkle Releaser. It's great for business travelers if you've never used it before. But essentially, we build these brands and we grow them. And the more we grow them, the more we create jobs. So a little bit more about our company. We're about $100 million in retail sales, so I would say small to medium size, but nothing like what I was used to before. And the good news is our products do really work. I'm totally biased, but they work. You should try them. But we needed to drive awareness and trial. And to date, a lot of these products have been driven by grassroots, by sampling, by word of mouth, things like that. And some of them were brands that had lost some sales momentum. We acquired them. We had to grow them back again. So we hadn't spent a lot in media before. So I had come on 10 months ago, coming from Procter, essentially with a promise to our investors, who are a privately held company, that we're going to increase our media investment. And they wanted to know what we're going to get for that. So I kind of put my neck out there and said, we have great brands, we need to market them, but they were expecting a 3 times ROI. So a little bit more about Boogie Wipes. They were founded in 2007 by 2 moms in Portland, Oregon, who were tired of chasing runny noses. And so they patented, really smart idea, putting saline in a wipe. So nobody else in the world can put saline in a wipe. So if you think about a neti pot, if you think about the whole growth of saline-based products, we're the only ones who can put them in a wipe. And the reason saline helps is it dissolves snot and mucus versus just wiping it away. So ask your kids, your grandkids, they love it. And we had strong brand awareness. 71% of people, a lot of you as I was walking around them, oh yeah, Boogie Wipes, that's great. However, it's a cute name. A lot of people didn't know why we're different. Why should you pay a premium for us? How are we any different than any other baby wipe in the aisle? So our objective was how do we educate people on how Boogie Wipes are different and drive trial amongst people that just think it's a cute brand name. So to do that, coming from my background, I really wanted to have a savvy media creative partner, and I want to introduce Corey Henke from Molio, talk about what they do.
Great. We're the pure intersection between creative and analytics. Both of these things require intense optimization, and I think what we do special is really optimizing the creative, and that's what's going to come in this next piece, but it's also a huge value to be able to work with the Zappy store as well as the Nehemiah because it helps us be more effective in our advertising. What you see here is a quick model of the Treeview Platform, and what you're looking at are the creative variables that we go ahead and optimize. Now, when we get a really good creative as we have, we then have to decide what we do with the hook, where we bring the brand in, how do we illustrate the problem, and most importantly, how do we qualify that user? again, when it comes to Boogie Wipes, the one thing that we did that we saw bring immense value to results as well as to our understanding is the fact that we were able to take a very narrow target who's going to buy Boogie Wipes and really go after a broad audience and narrow that target within the actual creative. So building a creative that can reach a narrow audience is one of the things and is one of the magical pieces that we were able to do with the partners that we have here.
Great, and the benefit of working with a company, I was adamant when I came on board at Nehemiah that we were going to have one media agency, one buying agency, and one creative agency for that very reason. And frankly, to have humble enough creatives that are willing to test and learn on the platform was exactly in the sweet spot. So when it came to this campaign, so imagine you're me. This is August 2015. I just signed on with Nehemiah August 17. We immediately fly to Salt Lake City to shoot our video. And then we need to go live by October 15. So this is 2 months. We have nothing. This is grassroots. This is startup business. This is not a 12-month lead time. It can be done. Don't let your big manufacturers tell you it can't be done. So we go out there, and then we had 2 great pieces of copy. We had a great brief. And then, as we always do in the advertising world, we had a longer form, story-focused engagement ad, and then we had a very brand-focused, brand-first ad. And being the marketing researcher in me, I was like, you gotta have the brand. Research, your advertising doesn't mean anything if they don't remember your brand. We have to get that through. So we had that eternal debate, and we're literally about to turn media on in 5 days, or actually less than 5 days. We're 2 days away, and I said, what can we do? So I called up Brian. I had known him from my time at Procter, and we said, let's test.
Uh-oh.
Went blank. So he can tell you about the test we ran.
Cool. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, so Eric called. We had a couple days, which in the world of automation is actually a plenty amount of time, which is kind of cool. So before we go into what we did, we automate process and scale methodologies from the best agencies in the world. So in this case, we're going to walk through an example of leveraging Millward Brown's IP of the link test and normative database, but doing something a little bit different in terms of placing advertisements in context to evaluate them. So what we're basically doing is taking consumer from the Lightspeed panel. We're screening them to determine that they're based on Eric's target market, right? So mothers of children under the age of 5, so that they're not over-screened, but they're the right population to evaluate this kind of a message. Once they're screened, we bring them into YouTube's Treeview Platform. We ask them to search for a video without telling them what they're doing. They search for that silly panda song that I've been joking about with many of you at the conference. And the pre-roll ad, organically placed, is the Boogie Wipes spot. We're then recording at what point did they skip, did they click through, are they enabling sound, what have you. Before that, then we bring them back to our environment, show them the ad, we take them through a validated set of copy testing questions, and based on automation, as soon as that is done, so that was a few hours later, report, stat tested, visualized, is ready for Eric and Cord to take over.
And I think, Ryan, one thing to build on that, for me, I actually wrote papers at the time in my previous job that said, in the world of real-time ad buying, do you really need to have research?
Yep.
Shouldn't we just put things out there in the wild? And for me, this was the right cost, because when I can buy, a $15 CPM, I can get the data really fast. But what I liked was, in this case, and you'll see how that helped us make decisions, we got verbatim responses, we got normative standards and everything else, what you wouldn't have if you just put media in the wild.
I don't know how this actually works. Cool. So 12 hours later, Eric gets an email, report ready, so they're able to start to evaluate. So what this says on the screen, and the text might be hard for some of you in the back to read, but what it says is the brand building ad is the best ad. And that's what he should do, because it's likely to drive consideration and trial, and it delivers on the key messages.
Which vindicates all the researchers in the room, so tell your creatives to give me a call.
Yeah, so this is interesting, right? So I see a lot of these conferences and we show data charts. Eric heads marketing for a company that's growing very quickly. What Eric and Richard, the CEO of Nehemiah, really want to know is, what am I going to do next? So that's the answer to his question. Now, there's a bunch of data that we can look at, but ultimately what's most important is the answer to the business question. So when we talk about this new world of merging tech and best-in-class thinking, it's important that we use tech to scale the best-in-class thinking, not replace it. The next is just another showing of, is this going to drive breakthrough in trial, which was a key objective. And based on the relationship between the data that we collected and the link normative database, we're very confident that the brand-led ad was the right ad to go forward with. So if we did want to go look at what people actually thought, and we were contemplating not showing you guys any data, but it is a research conference, so we'll ease away from it. But we're able to see that this is a persuasive ad, particularly among people who haven't trialed it, at a 95% confidence level against a very robust normative database. We're then also able to see that it's enjoyable. So this is a digital advertisement. We have to be engaging. So we're seeing that it's enjoyable. It's also communicating the brand message.
Is the branded spot had the same amount of enjoyment and more involvement than the non-branded spot. So I mean, again, you can have engagement and brand building at the same time, which is our task to Molio, so they succeeded in this case.
Exactly, and then we go ahead and we look at what people actually thought, and what we're seeing here is the story in a pre-roll environment takes too long. And we saw that in the behavioral data. People were skipping as soon as they could, despite rating it really well, whereas the brand spot, people were watching longer. But generally speaking, we saw two really good pieces of creative, which in many kind of monadic tests might be hard to differentiate, but we were able to determine based on what the objective was, it's brand. That's what we're doing. So let's see what you guys think. So this is the ad that we went with.
And I mean all. One thing I know about a cold is that tissue, paper towel, or even your sleeve are all savage on your little one's skin, especially if you're wiping 20, 30, or even 40 times a day. It's like sandpaper on your baby's nose. And that was before one brilliant one brought home Boogie Wipes. Boogie Wipes are the first natural saline nose wipes invented by mums for kids, and they're patented. Unlike other wipes, Boogie Wipes have no harsh or drying chemicals. Their natural saline dissolves mucus without irritation, and thanks to aloe, vitamin E, and chamomile, instead of annoyed, skin feels moisturized. Pampered even. Look, at the end of the day, your children will get sick. They're kids after all. But take it from someone who's had quite a few children. You can prepare yourself for the worst and provide them with the best. They're all I use, and I do have a reputation to uphold. Make wiping your little one's nose a much less painful experience. Click here to get Boogie Wipes today. Like Boogie Wipes? Try our sterile saline Boogie Mist, the only saline mist with a scented schnozzle.
I got to tell a quick Boogie Wipe story. I have an infant, right? And before Eric called, with 12 hours before he had to place his media, and I knew about Boogie Wipes, I used to have to clean his boogies, which they get at daycare, with regular baby wipes, and he used to shout at me. And so it was funny when I met Eric and I started buying Boogie Wipes. For about 4 months, he would pretend that it still hurt, and now it's completely subsided. So he has nothing to complain about now. So it's pretty funny.
No, I appreciate the paid endorsement. Unpaid endorsement.
That was earned, Eric.
Two things I think you're asking yourself. One, the kid with all the nasty boogers, that was Sugar. So we had a makeup artist who Sugar was pretty funny. And the nanny is actually British. So the other thing, if you didn't know that or not, we had a bunch of Americans trying to do British. They weren't quite right. So what happened? So these are actual sales results, and I can tell you about how we did this correlation later. This is extremely exciting for us, and again, the results vary by retailer. But we're averaging approximately plus 10% sales versus year ago, apples to apples at key retailers, which for us was a massive shift. And our correlation between our view rate, so this purple line right here is our cumulative view over time. So you can see this, if you can see the yellow, over here is right when we're starting the campaign, week 1 of the campaign, well, all the way through. We started to heavy up, really, in cough cold season. A 0.75 correlation between sales year ago and the video, which we're obviously very excited about. So really validating what we had seen in the test. We've seen step changes in our awareness and our persuasion and our brand tracker. And all of this despite the lowest incidence of cold and flu in the past 5 years among young children. So that's the other thing. I became a prognosticator of the flu. And talk about big data. The CDC provides phenomenal data. And I'm sitting over here in December telling my investors, like, it's okay, people are going to get sick. Which is, so every Friday it's like, well, they're sick or they're not. So people really didn't get all that sick, and we still had these great results. So we obviously feel great about this. Baby care is an incredibly competitive industry, and we've been able to maintain and grow shelf distribution. And you saw at the end the tag for our Boogie Mist, that's been 20% growth, which has been fantastic. So, and all that fuels our mission. So what's next? What's next is saline soothers. So you can go to salinesoothers.com. We're going to leverage our patented saline technology and move this into the adult space. So that'll be available at retailers here in August for your cough cold season. But really wanted to close with, and then we have a little bit of time for questions. From my point of view, being on the research side for a decade and then moving on to the brand building side, a couple things that I would tell you from my experience here. One, you can afford to test. You know, in digital, we always would have the debate in a previous life on should we even test? It's all real-time ad feedback and everything else. You can absolutely afford to do it. We are a very small company. We found a way to do it. You have time to test, and you have time to test iteratively. For saline soothers, we've just gotten the results back on that. That'll be optimizing to go live. We had a little bit more time this time than for Boogie Wipes. And the thing that Molio does and Zappy Store does for us, it enables us to let data drive our decisions and our media plan. So what we do at Nehemiah is we do total end-to-end from creative to marketing research to analytics all the way through. We're all one team when we do that. And as I said before, you must insist that your ad dollars do both branding and engagement, and you can't sacrifice one for the other. Is what we learned in this test. So that's our presentation. We'd love to open it up for some questions.
First question, right back over here.
I can't see, it's very bright.
Go ahead, we see you right there.
What was?
Oh, sorry.
Ladies first.
Thank you. What was the YouTube tool that you mentioned for video testing?
So there's a tool that lives on Zappy Store. It's technology that uses the Milward-Brown methodology, and then we organically place the media, leveraging technology from a company called iSquare that allows us to place the ads in the environment just as they would be if you paid for the media.
But the ad unit Corey was talking about is called Treeview. So it's where you only pay when people hit 30 seconds and you can skip after 5 seconds. So we do that, to Corey's point, and you can talk about more about this, is we qualify users. So we want to make sure somebody, for us, when it's kind of a need state base, you know, if you don't need a Boogie Wipe, we're not paying for you to serve you an ad. So we think it's effective.
Thanks, gentlemen.
So you talked about having the time to test, but still the question, like, why? If you can get that information quickly from behavioral, what are you getting by testing that you wouldn't otherwise just learn now in the digital? Because everything you do is digital.
Yeah, for me, we got 2 or 3 things.
Wow.
Okay, number one, we got a normative database, which was great, especially for our investors that were not familiar with ad testing and digital media. So we had this is based on what other big companies do. We have a benchmark database comparison. Number 2, we were able to optimize before we launch, which obviously you could do in real time in digital, but it gave us some more time to do that. And we got the great connection between verbatim and norms. So for me, the price was right to do that. I wouldn't go spend traditional copy testing to go do that, but this was the perfect method. So what we do, and maybe Corey can talk about this, what we do now is we go do Zappy Store, and then we also do a media behavioral placement test, and that's kind of our go-to-market. So for saline soothers, he's about ready to place the media on that now. So if you're part of our subset test or geo test, you'll get that, so we'll get both.
Yeah, testing is a big part of the process, but the optimization is also another big tool. One of the things that I think is most important is looking at the cost per view, right, and what you're paying for. But also understanding that since you're only paying for the view, you have a huge opportunity to brand in that 30 seconds with what we call the free impression, right? And that impression is probably the most valuable because it's free. And so it gives us a huge opportunity during the entire long form video, as you saw, to be able to say, okay, if we're gonna go after broad moms, at 30 seconds, let's go ahead and put in a qualifier so we can get that mom that has a kid between 1 to 5 years old. And so it's very different than using a topic targeting or an affinity target, you know, and leveraging, you know, one of Google's pieces of targeting, and then really switching it now to let's go ahead and modularize the creative so that we can really qualify that user specifically, and we can still pay the lower cost per view.
And what we do now is we shoot our video modularly, if that's a word, modularly. So we do different vignettes and snippets. And what we found with the long form, we wouldn't have had behavioral because the metrics in market were about the same, is that people were really getting bored. So their engagement dipped even though they were watching the video. So we got from the verbatims that they were starting to wane, like, okay, we get it, kids are snotty and messy, get on with it. Whereas our creative team thought it was hilarious.
One more question?
Can't see anything.
Thanks, guys.
All right, great. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.